Hey everyone, this is Michael again and welcome to the Smackdown review. And tonight's Smackdown was from the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I gotta say, tonight's Smackdown, I enjoyed tonight's Smackdown. I thought it was a good show, in my opinion. And the crowd was much better than the crowd that we had for Raw last night in Lafayette. At least the crowd showed some energy tonight. So let's get on with the review. So SmackDown opened up tonight with Shane McMahon coming out. He ends up saying what's up to New Orleans, and he was hyping up the NXT superstars from last night when they made their Raw debut. And Shane goes on to say that those guys impressed him so much that those guys, Aleister Black, Ricochet, Gargano, and Ciampa, they're going to be on SmackDown tonight. And he says he's got a lot more, which then he ends up getting interrupted by The Miz. So The Miz comes out. He apologizes for interrupting Shane. So Miz goes on to say that he hasn't slept in 2 days and he needs to get something off his chest. He goes on to say 48 hours ago at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, he lost the SmackDown Tag Team titles. He says no matter where he goes, he can't shake the guilt. And Shane ends up saying Shane took a chance on being his partner, and he knows his reputation. He says he knows why he was hesitant, but he took that risk. And Miz ends up saying that he has to be honest to Shane, and that he has a confession for him. And he says that he used Shane because he knew he could relate to the way he feels about his dad. And he goes on to say to Shane, when he fell injured, when The Miz fell injured at the Best in the World tournament, Shane ended up stepping in and won it. And he goes on to say when he offered a team, Shane, revealed being tag team champions was his dream. And Miz says when he wins a title, he does whatever it takes to make it the most prestigious. And he goes on to say this time they did it together. And Miz ends up saying 2 days later they stood in this ring, and Shane surprised Miz by bringing out Miz's dad. And he says as his dad walked out and the fans chanted, his dad was proud of him, that he loved him. And Miz says he's at a loss of words. Miz had a loss of words for a moment. He says it was the first time he had ever heard his dad say that. He goes on to say that was the best moment in his career and one of the greatest moments of his life. And it was all because of Shane. So Miz ends up thanking his tag team partner, and then says he let Shane down 2 days ago at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. He ends up apologizing to Shane, and he ends up saying that he can't change the past, but he can control the future. And he says there is no automatic rematch clause, but he's Shane. And he says if there's anybody that can make a rematch, it's him. And the crowd wants to see it. He knows that we all want to see it. And Miz leads the crowd, in a rematch chant to prove a point. And so the Usos end up coming out. And they say, from the sounds of it, the WWE Universe wants a rematch. Goes on to say there's no rematch clause. But if Shane Shane will just dig deep down and forgive Miz, they will give them another shot. And he says there's only one reason why they don't want a rematch. And he says they end up calling Miz a joke. So they end up saying to Shane that Miz is a joke. He's a joke, a loser, a failure, a fraud, and a wannabe A-lister with C-list skills. And they say they want Shane to find himself a better partner. But Shane ends up speaking up, and he ends up telling the Usos to not disrespect his partner like that. And so the rematch is on, and it's going to be at FASTLANE. So at FASTLANE, we're going to have the rematch. The Miz and Shane versus the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. So, but that was the end of the segment, but it was a decent segment to open SmackDown. Then we had the first match tonight. Aleister Black versus Andrade Cien Almas. This was a decent match. It was a really enjoyable match. Aleister Black, of course, did his entrance where he rises, which is awesome. I really like when he does that. And both of these guys were entertaining. Andrade Cien Almas gave it all that he got in this match. But in the end, Aleister Black ended up hitting the Black Mass to Andrade Cien Almas to score the win. And so Aleister Black ends up winning the match. Well, overall, it was a decent match. It was a very enjoyable match from the both of them. And then we saw DIY. They were watching from backstage. They were watching the match backstage. DIY, Gargano, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa. And so they get interviewed. And Tommaso Ciampa says that he knows a lot of people are meeting them for the first time, but they've made careers of defying expectation, and that he loves the spotlight. And so Gargano says that it's crazy to think that they went to war last year in this very building, which they were in, which was the Smoothie King Center. And he goes on to say, here they are together on SmackDown, ready to show the world they're the future. Which, of course, they are the future. Both of them are the best superstars on NXT. The top superstars in NXT. And so Cesaro and Sheamus end up coming. And they end up telling both of them that no one cares. They end up telling DIY that no one cares and that they should stay away from SmackDown. And so we see Sheamus and Tommaso Ciampa. They get in each other's faces. And Gargano says they're not here to set the bar. They're here to break the bar. Which, Cesaro and Sheamus laugh at. And they end up walking off. Well, it was a decent interview with DIY backstage. I mean, these two guys are the future. Then after we had the interview, we had Jeff Hardy backstage, and AJ Styles ends up coming up to him. Jeff Hardy tells AJ Styles that he wants to let bygones be bygones and just concentrate on winning tonight. And so the New Day end up coming up. Kofi Kingston had a pancake in his hand, and he extends, that he extends to the other two, guys, and they take the pancakes and enjoy them. Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, they end up just enjoying the pancakes. So that was the backstage segment with them. Then we had DIY, Gargano and Ciampa versus the Bar, Cesaro and Sheamus tag team match. And this match was a good match. This was a very entertaining match. Gargano and Ciampa, they were on fire during this match. You had one point where I think it was Sheamus end up hitting like a knee strike to Ciampa's back, which looked like it hurt Ciampa because Ciampa ended up like saying like a curse word, which ended up getting bleeped out on TV. And it was just back and forth between these guys. But I enjoyed Gargano and Ciampa in this match. DIY, one of my favorite tag teams. When Gargano and Ciampa, were tag team NXT, and now I think they're still entertaining. They still got it together as a tag team. And you had at one point here in the match where Ciampa was on the top, and he ended up flipping over Sheamus, and he suplexed Sheamus, and it looked like Ciampa botched flipping over Sheamus because Sheamus landed on looked like Ciampa's knee, and it looked like Ciampa injured his knee, which was scary. That was scary how we saw Ciampa flip over Sheamus, and he was trying to flip Sheamus, and Sheamus landed on his knee. Sheamus landed on Ciampa's knee, it looked like. But that was a very scary move. It looked like Ciampa was injured there, but after the match, it looked like that he moved perfectly fine to the back. But Ciampa and Gargano end up winning the match. Ciampa end up pinning Cesaro. So Ciampa and Gargano win. But it was a good match. It was a very entertaining match between these guys. Really liked it. Really enjoyed it. And the crowd tonight, they popped for Aleister Black and DIY, Gargano and Ciampa, which they got the pops that they deserved last night on Raw, which I still want to talk about that shitty crowd last night in Lafayette for Raw. All zombies just watching the show and not reacting to nothing, and just sitting there like. And then one was like, no reaction last night whatsoever from the crowd on Raw last night. At least tonight, the New Orleans crowd popped and reacted for SmackDown tonight. They weren't in a coma. So yeah, but all in all, DIY versus Cesaro and Sheamus. Really enjoyed the match. Really good match. Then we had Kayla Braxton. She was interviewing Asuka. Finally, Asuka is on TV after not appearing on TV since the Rumble. So that's 3 weeks that Asuka was kept off of WWE television. But I was glad to see Asuka back after 3 weeks. So Asuka was saying that she's ready for a new challenge. She says that she beat Becky Lynch and Charlotte at TLC. She says she ended up making Becky tap out at the Rumble, and she doesn't want to talk about them anymore. And she says she wants to know who's ready for Asuka right now. And so out comes Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. And Mandy Rose ends up mocking Asuka and says, if anyone's ready, it's her. So then we got the match. Mandy Rose versus Asuka. Match itself, it was not the greatest though, but you know, it was a typical women's match. You had at one point where Asuka ended up kicking end up dropping the leg on Mandy Rose, like knee striked Mandy Rose in the face, and looked like Asuka got Mandy Rose in the eye because Mandy Rose was holding on to her eye, and it was eventually we saw that Mandy Rose was faking it because she ended up pushing Asuka into the ropes, and led to rolling up Asuka for the pin. So Mandy Rose ends up winning the match. So all in all, match itself, it was a typical women's match. Wasn't that great. Then we had Charlotte backstage. She was getting interviewed. Charlotte ends up saying, Becky Lynch is just making things worse for herself by showing up over and over. She goes on to say that she's the most selfish person that she knows. She goes on to say if Becky ever does it again, she'll be arrested for criminal trespassing and will be thrown in jail. And nobody, and that's what nobody wants. And it showed Charlotte's arm all bruised up from the crutch shots that Becky ended up giving her at Elimination Chamber. Also, if you remember, not only did Becky end up striking Charlotte with one of her crutches, she ended up striking Ronda with one of the crutches, busting Ronda up in the face up here, cutting Ronda, which she was bleeding. So, but Charlotte ends up saying it's a one-on-one match at WrestleMania between her and Ronda. And it's the main event because she is in it. And so that was the interview with Charlotte backstage. And we all know this is going to be a triple threat at Mania. We all know it. WWE is not fooling nobody. So then we had The Miz end up walking. And he goes to Shane. And Miz ends up telling Shane that he just got a call from his dad. And Miz then announces that his dad will be at ringside for their tag title rematch at FASTLANE. And that's gonna be pretty terrible, because we all know the Usos are gonna retain the titles at FASTLANE. So the Usos are not gonna lose it just like that. So then we had the next match, Ricochet versus Eric Young of Sanity, and the crowd popped for Ricochet. There were pops for Ricochet tonight, which was awesome. And this was a decent match. This was a very enjoyable match. Ricochet, very entertaining. He's also another one of the top guys in NXT. A lot with more, with Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream. So, but Ricochet, very entertaining in this match. He ended up, working on Eric Young. Eric Young was fine in the match, but Ricochet ended up getting the win. He ended up hitting the 630 splash onto Eric Young. So Ricochet ends up winning the match. All in all, decent match. Then we had Kayla Braxton. She was interviewing the New Day. and she talks to Kofi about his performance at Elimination Chamber on Sunday. And Xavier Woods says, this didn't happen overnight. And Kofi Kingston's been grinding this for 11 years. And, he says to cite things to show how long 11 years is. And Kofi ends up saying how everybody on Twitter has had his back. And he ends up saying, oh, this is wild for him. And none of it would have happened without his brothers, in the New Day, Xavier and Big E. He goes on to say that they were the ones that pushed for him to be the guy to go into the Elimination Chamber. He ends up saying that he loves them, and pretty much that was the interview with the New Day. Very decent interview, and Kofi. Everybody's been saying, oh, WWE dropped the ball on not giving Kofi the WWE championship at Elimination Chamber, having Kofi pin Daniel Bryan and become the new WWE champion. But eventually it is going to happen. It is going to happen in 3 weeks, which I'll get to. So then we had the main event, which was a 6-man tag team match. It was AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, and Randy Orton. And before the match started, you had them all coming out. Daniel Bryan and Rowan end up coming out. Daniel Bryan was on the mic, and he says, small-minded skeptics have oppressed the great minds through history. He mentions Thomas Beckett, Joan of Arc, and Socrates. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. And he says they tried to oppress, and so too they tried to oppress him in the chamber. But he survived because he follows a higher purpose, to enlighten and educate. He ends up saying that he's going to do it once more about his opponent at FASTLANE. So Daniel Bryan says he's not going to tell us who it is. He's going to tell us who it isn't. And Daniel Bryan says it's not going to be any of the men in this match tonight, because he defeated all of them inside the Elimination Chamber. And so after Daniel Bryan got off the mic, the match got underway, which this 6-man tag team match, it was entertaining. It was a decent match. It was back and forth between them. Kofi Kingston, of course, very good in this match. You had a point towards the end of the match where Kofi went to the top, and he hit like a jumping senton to the outside to Daniel Bryan and Rowan, and the crowd really enjoyed that, and the crowd was on their feet towards the end of this match, which you gotta say, the crowd was on their feet tonight for SmackDown in this match, when last night on Raw they were just sitting on their hands, not saying anything and not reacting to what was going on during those 3 hours. And that's why the SmackDown crowd made the show very enjoyable, and also the wrestling tonight was good, was decent. But Kofi Kingston end up hitting the Trouble in Paradise to Daniel Bryan, end up pinning Daniel Bryan, and so AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Kofi Kingston win the match, thanks to the Trouble in Paradise from Kofi to Daniel Bryan, and the crowd really enjoyed that. So I mean, the crowd was hot for Kofi, as how it was at the Elimination Chamber. And so after the match, Shane McMahon comes out, and he ends up telling Daniel Bryan that he will be defending the WWE Championship at FASTLANE against Kofi Kingston, which I pretty much knew that was going to happen. I think that they should have had this at WrestleMania. This would have been a big Mania match for Kofi now that the crowd is behind Kofi and they're popping so loud for him. This would have been an opportunity for a match at WrestleMania. That way the crowd, that much crowd at WrestleMania that's going to be at MetLife Stadium. That crowd could pop really loud for Kofi. It would have been a great moment for Kofi to defeat Daniel Bryan and win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. But to me, WWE should have held this off for WrestleMania. So now we're going to get Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship at FASTLANE. So anyways, like I said, the 6-man tag team match, it was a very entertaining match, very decent match. So that was SmackDown tonight. It was a good, decent show. So anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's edition of SmackDown. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video and this review. And thank you all for watching. Definitely give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, I'll see you all later. Bye.